hip external rotation positional isometrics. So this is your hip external rotation. I know it's a bit confusing because your foot's going on the inside, but just so you know, if I straighten my knee and do that, the leg actually rotates out. Just because I've got a bend in the knee, the foot comes in. Anyway, the reason you're doing this is your active range is way too far away from your passive range, and we need to close that gap, and that's what this exercise is for. So in this setup, we're going to do it on your side. There's a few different setups, obviously, that you can try, and we'll be cycling through these to find which is the best for you. But what we're basically going to do, get on your side. You can either be up on, I like to do this on my elbow like this. What I'm going to get you to do is rotate your leg as far as you can to the end of your active range. So let's just assume this is the end of my active range. I've got a little bit more, but let's just say this is the end of your active range. What you're then going to do is going to get your other leg just underneath here. What I want you to do is pop this hand over there. If you've got a problem from a balance perspective, you can very easily just lay down like this. And this is actually a really good position to do it in as well. But so that's your active range. Get your leg underneath here, and you're going to push up about 10 or 15 degrees past your active range. You're going to hold this position nice and still. This arm's going to be nice and stiff over here, keeping this leg still, but this will also aid you in increasing your irradiation. The more intensity you can drive through this exercise, assuming your program says 100%, the more results you're going to get. So we're going to sit here, going to take a big breath, going to brace my core, and then I'm going to do a Pales contraction, which is rotating basically against this leg. So if my leg wasn't there, I would be rotating back down. You can do that for 10 seconds at max effort, and we'll do it in a second. And then you're going to do a rails contraction, which is you trying to rotate further. Now I can, if you're in your passive range, you won't be able to. So either way, it's isometric. One's isometric, means it doesn't move because there's a leg in the way. The other one is because you're in your passive range. So anyway, going to get here nice, and I like to hold on with both arms if you can. Either way, if you can't, make a fist over here. This arm's nice and straight. Big breath, brace your core, and then start ramping up. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100%. So now I'm driving down here at absolute max effort, 100%. It's not quite 100% for me because I'm talking. You can do that for 10 seconds and then reverse direction. I'm pretending like I can't move here, so it looks like what you're doing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Whew, and then relax. Once you're relaxed, you're going to move up another 10 or 15 degrees. Exactly the same thing. So here, 10 seconds down. Push, rotating down as hard as you can, and then rotating back this way as hard as you can. And you're going to keep going at 10 to 15 degree increments until you get to the end of your passive range. So let's say, as an example, that's the end of your active range. The end of your active range. I'm going to get my leg underneath here, 10 or 15 degrees. I'll do 1 rep here. After that rep's done, another 10 or 15, another one here. After that rep's done, another 10 or 15, another one here. Now, once you get to the end of your range, don't get to the end of your range and then like push into a huge stretch. Just get to the end. You're not trying to get more passive range. That's not the point. We're trying to get more active range. So just get to the end of where your passive is and there. So assuming you've got, say, a 30 degree gap, you'll do 2 reps because you get to your active range, 10 or 15 degrees, another 10 or 15 degrees, you'll be at the end. If you've got a 60 degree gap, you'll do 4 reps. Anyway, there is your side lying hip external rotation positional isometrics. Enjoy. Hip external rotation positional isometrics. So we're going to be using this assuming you have hypermobility, which means you have a big gap in between your active and passive range. So this is my active range of hip external rotation. I now put my hand here, grab my leg, rotate up, and I've got about a 10 or 15 degree gap there. If you've got a really big gap there, what we need to do is we need to backfill that, and we're going to use that, use positional isometrics to do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to get into this end range of active motion. Grab here, and just lift up 10 or 15 degrees. Now you may be able to lift all the way up here, that's not the point. What we're going to do is get to your active range and then go about 10 or 15 degrees past and hold still. Once you're in this position, you don't need to hold the stretch at all. We can just basically start going. what you're gonna do is you're gonna do a 15-second absolute max effort pales and then rails contraction. So pales will be you trying to rotate back this way, and then rails will you be trying to rotate up. You're in your passive range here, so you probably won't really feel too much. That's okay. What we're trying to do is teach the nervous system how to start getting control here. So that max effort is what's required to start getting the nervous system to know how to work there. So even though you may not be able to feel anything, this is a max effort. So you're doing that big breath, brace your core, create a radiation and get as much tension in here as you can. So once again, you can do this on obviously seated as I am. So get here, get there. If you're there, you can make life a little bit easy for you and just sort of put it underneath your leg, and then you can adjust that angle by what you do here. But make sure that leg stays still. Now, as I come up this way, my whole leg has to come because I don't have any more range. But if you're hypermobile, as you do this, your leg might come up a little bit. So either way, what you're gonna do is active range, passive range. You hold still here, pop your leg under there if you want, or just hold, take a breath, irradiate, and then drive down as hard as you can, trying to straighten that leg out, trying to drive down, drive down, drive down. You'll do that for about 15 seconds, and then reverse direction, trying to lift this off your hand as hard as you possibly can. That'll be all the inside stuff that you're going for about 15 seconds. Woo! Once you're down there, have a little rest, and then lift it up another 10 or 15 degrees. So you'll be doing 3 sets, and you'll be doing it at 3 different positions. So the first position will be 10 or 15 degrees past your active range, and then 10 or 15, and then 10 or 15, and that'll be it. If you want, you can do this laying down, and you literally just, same leg, I'll put my quad vertical, I'll get to my active range here, so I'll turn around this way, my active range there, and then pull about 10 or 15 degrees, and here we are. Just be mindful as you do this. I'll show you from this angle, even though I'm showing you my butt. What I don't want to do as I do this is have that leg pop out. I want this to stay upright. So if you use your leg here to get more rotation, be mindful that this leg isn't staying straight up, because that will push that knee out. So as we do this, get here, you can get your leg up there just to help, make life a little bit easier for you. Hold here, and then the pales is driving this foot that way, and then rails is trying to get more stretch. Once again, get to your active range, go past it, 10 to 15 degrees, do 1 set there, absolute max effort, have a rest, pull it another 10 to 15 degrees, do another set there, and then the third set, same thing, another 10 to 15 degrees, another set there. And that is your positional isometrics. What we should be finding is, over the time that you do this, over the first few weeks or whatever, that active to passive range gap will decrease. So if you get to a point where you now only have 30 degrees, well, you only need to do 2 reps, right? Because we get to the active range, we go to 10 or 15 degrees, go there, and then the next 10 or 15 degrees, well, that's the end of your range anyway, so that's where we stop. You're not just doing 3 all the time. If you're doing 10 or 15 degree increments, you need about a sort of 35 to 45 degree gap between your active passive range. If it's less than that, you're only doing those 2 reps. Hopefully that made sense. If you do have any questions, obviously let me know. Otherwise, enjoy your new hips. Hip external rotation positional isometrics. So there's 2 ways I'm going to show you that they're going to be very similar, but a couple of little differences. So play around with both and sort of see which one you prefer and you feel that you get the most sensation from. So external rotation is, I'll do this with my right leg. So if I lay down, external rotation is rotating my leg this way. So my foot comes in, femur's rotating out. What I want to do with my positional isometrics is I want to rotate as far as I can. So this is my active range of motion. Then I want to get about 15 degrees, 10 or 15 degrees past that into my passive range of motion. So for me, I don't have hypermobility. I don't have a big gap. So I can actively get here. And then if I stretch, I've got about another 10 or 15 degrees. Now that's what you generally want. If you've got more than that, then that's your hypermobility, and we need to backfill that range. That's why you'll be doing this exercise. So what I need you to do is get active range, passive range. So you're going to get to 10 or 15 degrees past that active range. You're going to hold still. You're not going to do it like this. I'm just showing you the process. And then you're going to hold still, and then you're going to do pails and rails contractions. So the easy way to do it is you can use a wall or just your other leg. So I'll start with my other leg. So if I get this one that I'm working on, I want my femur, my knee pointing straight up. I'm going to rotate as far as I can. Then I'm going to bring this knee up here and then bring this knee closer to me to get a bit of a bigger stretch. I'm now 10 or 15 degrees past my passive range. Now I'm going to hold still here. Put your hand here if you need to. You probably won't need to. And you're going to do your first contraction here. It's really important to note that this leg that I'm working on is staying straight up. So from the side, from this angle, a common mistake is I get to here, but then as I bring this knee back, it pushes this out to the side. This one wants to stay straight up. So here, leg, keep that still. Now I rotate. So once I get into this position, I'm going to hold still, and I'm going to isometrically contract. So I'm going to try to rotate back, and then I'm going to try to actively rotate more. You're not going to get any movement. This is isometric loading. So I'm going to hold still, big breath, brace my core, and now I'm trying to rotate. So this leg is getting pushed into that leg there. I'm trying to rotate back, and I'm doing this as hard as I possibly can for 10 seconds. Once that 10 seconds is up, I'm going to reverse direction. Now I'm doing everything I can to get that leg off this leg. But because I'm in my passive range of motion, it's just not moving. Oof. 10 seconds each way, then relax. Once I've done that rep, I'm now going to stretch into another 10 or 15 degrees. Now, I can't do this because I don't have hypermobility, but what you'll be able to do is imagine if this is all I could do, but I could stretch all the way to here. What I would be doing, that's my active range, that's my passive, 10 or 15. I'll do my rep here, then another one here, then another one there, until I get to the end of my range of motion. So you literally just do that right here. There's my active, passive, 10 seconds each way, 10 seconds each way, and just go 10 or 15 degrees until you get to the end of your passive range. Now, if you don't want to use your other leg, or you have some mobility issues, maybe you can only get this far so you can't kind of get your leg there, just use a corner, any corner. You can do it in a door frame, whatever. Literally just get here. This is my active range, so I just nice and square in line here. This is the end of my active range. So if I want to passively stretch more, I can do one of two things. I can either move my body down that way and keep this leg up. That's now stretched it. Or I can stay there and rotate my body and the leg stays still. And then this is where I do my work. Anyway, so that's an external rotation, positional isometrics. If you have any questions, let me know.